Star Wars 7 by 7 episode 2703. All right, it's a What to Watch Now Saturday, and we're going to talk about the 6th and final episode of the year for the High Republic show, and 5 highlights that I took from it that I think are worth sharing with you. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7 by 7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So once again, another delightful episode of the High Republic show, if not necessarily a consequential one to some degree, and you can kind of understand why, because here we are at the end of November, and Wave 3 of Phase 1, the very dramatic and catastrophic wave that we have to look forward to for the High Republic, doesn't start until January, so there's only so much that they can do and reveal and that sort of thing. And there were some reveals, basically a collection of character art that's out there, and that's pretty much it. There are a couple of things hinted at basically, but yeah, let's just get right into it with 5 highlights from the High Republic show. I'll start with an observation made by creative director Elizabeth Schaefer, who edits the Star Wars books at Penguin Random House. She says that a story is only as good as its villain, and that sentiment was echoed by Mark Panaccia. They're both looking at Marchion Ro stuff right now in particular, but of course they've been looking at Marchion Ro stuff throughout the creation of the High Republic stories, and so yeah, they have a certain lens on it probably, especially now since we are so close to the release of new stories in the High Republic that the rest of us don't have. And so yes, that particular observation is a very salient one, and we have talked about this on the podcast in the past about Marchion Ro and how compelling and scary a villain he is. And so knowing that they're continuing to talk about Marchion Ro that way is really awesome, but they're also talking about how we're going to find out more about his backstory and about how he doesn't necessarily have full 100% control over a situation, and that's part of what makes him compelling. And learning about his history and backstory, that it's not going the way that we all think it might go as it's put in the show, well, yeah, that's all very cool and interesting stuff. And that sort of flows into the second takeaway, which is just about what little that they were willing or able to share with anyone about what might be to come. Marchion Ro and his journey was the highlight for that, but also some props were given to Trail of Shadows, which is the miniseries being written by Daniel Jose Older for Marvel, and the story centers around the investigation of what happened to Loden Greatstorm at the end of The Rising Storm, which I think we're far enough away that spoilers are not an issue, and we've talked about it on the podcast before, that this crazy thing called the Leveler that we don't necessarily know a heck of a lot about just yet was turned loose, and it basically turned Loden Greatstorm to ash and kind of threw everybody's sense of the Force all out of whack that were in the immediate vicinity, and sent Bel Zettifar, Loden's Padawan, into a catastrophic coma. And that also is apparently something that is going to turn out in a way that readers don't expect. So yeah, we'll have to see how that goes. And there was also something that was about as subtle as a hit on the head from Christina Ariel at the end of the show when she was revealing the new character art, and Jara Staros, who is the senator from Corellia, and she is given the implication of some sort of connection to Marchion Ro, and we don't necessarily know what that is or what the deal is with it, but anybody who has a connection with Marchion Ro, it can't be a good thing. And that whole panel is really worth watching. So they have, as I said, Elizabeth Schaefer, who's the creative director for Penguin Random House, and senior editor Mark Panaccia, who is with Marvel Comics. And they also have Fran Lau, who is the executive editor with VIZ Media, and they do the manga publishing. They did The Edge of Balance Volume 1 and have Volume 2 coming out. And so I think my third takeaway from this would be that it was just fascinating, in particular, to hear Fran Lau talk about the integration of VIZ Media into Star Wars storytelling, and with this High Republic storytelling initiative in specific, just that the this is the first time that they're doing stuff like that. It's not the first manga for Star Wars they've done, like they did the Guardians of the Whills adaptation, just to name one thing. But being integrated into something like this, the notes that I had was that it was just, getting to develop the relationships with Lucasfilm and understand how their whole storytelling, process works, and the approval processes and the creatives that are involved with it, and hearing about how manga production lead times are different because they're creating these, much larger things compared to, say, the Marvel comic series, which is only like a 20-odd page thing, or it's over 100 for the mangas from VIZ Media so far. Like, that stuff is really kind of interesting if you like hearing about the process of this stuff and what happens behind the scenes. Then for a fourth takeaway, there's another large segment about the Tales from the Galaxy's Edge edition that includes this Secret Garden High Republic storytelling situation. And one of the things that I found particularly fascinating about it is just how they talk about their goal with it being exploring the relationship between a master and a Padawan, and also trying to figure out how to give people who use the Oculus to experience this and to do a sort of Jedi training, how they can focus on more of the spiritual side of the Force through this experience. How do they convey that? And, both just from a logistic standpoint of actually like operating the controls and what they do, but also in the storytelling aspect of it as well. And so they focus on three particular aspects of the Force: on patience, on balance, and on growth. And then on the fact that the ultimate lesson for this is that knowledge is a free-flowing thing between Master and Padawan. It's not something that just the Master downloads to the Padawan, but that there is also a back and forth that's involved with it as well. And a fifth and final takeaway I'll share just has to do with the fact that in January it's going to be the 1-year anniversary of the launch of the High Republic Storytelling Initiative, which is amazing to think about. I mean, it was supposed to be in August of 2020, obviously, and of course the pandemic created issues for that. Naturally, it created much bigger issues, of course. But anyway, so yeah, they're going to do supposedly a big 1-year anniversary celebration with the next episode of the High Republic show. And of course, the next wave will have launched with the advent of the High Republic show. So yeah, we're already going to be in wave 3, and whatever horrible catastrophes that await us will have been dropped on us. And so they'll be able to start talking about these things. The whole wave won't have all been out because only the novel and the middle grade reader book will be out, and the young adult book won't be out until February. So yeah, but at least the major storytelling event is going to drop. And the fact that Elizabeth Schaefer can talk about how when she received Claudia Gray's draft of The Fallen Star, how she actually had to say, I needed to separate myself from my fan experience and my editor experience because she was having an emotional reaction to the things that happened in the book. And she said it's not a spoiler to say that there are casualties in it, because I think we all know that there are going to be casualties in the story, but she said that it had enough of an effect on her that she actually had to consciously pull herself back and talk or tell herself to set that fan situation aside so that she could focus on her professional side and deliver the best possible book, and bring her, of course, prodigious expertise to the work that Claudia Gray had done, and give us a wonderful experience that will completely top what we've had so far. So that stuff is always real fun to hear too. And so it's just kind of amazing to think we're a year into this just about, and it's just getting started in its way. And so there you go. Those are highlights for episode 6 of the High Republic show, and I will link to that episode of the show in the blog post for this show's episode at sw7x7.com, and also in the show notes for this episode's podcast. And speaking of this episode's podcast, that's going to do it for it. So it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.